My name is Roger Schmidt. My background, just so you know, I come from 23 years of fire security and access control. I lived on the industry side of this for 23 years doing this stuff, and I enjoyed it. It's one of the best things I ever did. And then coming in, having someone pay me to be a trainer is to me is even better because I get to share my knowledge. All of you know that we are here with ASSA ABLOY. ASSA ABLOY, we're here from the group of HES. We think about electric strike, what we're going to talk about today, Securitron, Maglocks, Life Safety Power, Power Supplies, Adams Rite, Storefront Aluminum. And if you've not seen our Storefront Aluminum classes, imagine 50% of everything access control in the future is going to be with Storefront Aluminum, either on the perimeter of the door or on the interior. So we're seeing a lot of growth there. And alarm controls. Alarm controls is the group that if you can't find something that doesn't exist, call and talk to the group at Alarm Controls, and oftentimes they can create either a graphic display for you, or they can create some type of a little control panel for you. ASSA ABLOY, you can see all of our different groups. We've recently added in Kwikset, Weiser, and Baldwin Locks. So this will be getting updated here in the near future. But we take things from, in ASSA ABLOY, we've got everything from doors, hardware, frames. I get the fun part of taking it and understanding how do I make it electrified. We also teach the codes classes that go along with it. Safety to us is critical. I spent many years on my side of the industry side of being a trainer and as a safety, doing the safety stuff as well. Safety is critical. We're constantly evolving right now with safety as we're going through everything with the COVID right now. But we want to make sure, my biggest thing was I had 140 techs at most I trained at one time, 140 technicians. And I would say the most important thing to me is everybody goes home safe at the end of the day. So we're going to spend a lot of time talking about strikes here for the next hour. And for the bases, majority of all of our strikes have a standard 5-year parts warrant, no fault, no questions asked warranty on it. When we take and we look at some of the newer products, the HES 1500 and the 1600, they come out of the door with a 10-year warranty. But by adding a smart pack onto it, we can take the other strikes here and take them from a 5-year warranty to a 10-year warranty. Later on, we're also going to get in, we're going to quickly talk about the ES100, our new strike, which is wireless and driven by a motor. So a lot of information we're going to go through. Please feel free. If you have a question, put it in the chat. I've got my chat sitting open up here so I can kind of monitor that a little bit. So if you have a question, we'll try and answer it. And at the very end, if you have questions that go past the top of the hour, we will stay on and answer your questions for you as well. So let's talk a little bit about history, because history plays a part in what we do. If we go back into the 1800s, 1870s, late 1860s, early 1870s timeframe, we got our first direct current generator that worked. And it wasn't more than 15 years later before we had a electric strike that would work, that good old buzz-me-in technology that gave us some different changes. And historically, we've seen some really kind of not so good stuff. And we can also see some, better stuff, but understanding how electric strikes are, one, to be selected, and two, to understand the skill set it takes to be able to install them is important. I recently picked this one up in Chicago. A gentleman shared it with me. Here you can see we're working with wood. And wood is one of the most difficult types of materials that we are going to work with when it comes to working with an electric strike. But working with wood is one of the ones where we want to be careful. We want to make sure we have a good skill set for working with wood. I remember when I was growing up, we had to take in high school a mandatory class dealing with wood and working with wood. So it's a difficult one to work with, especially for younger generation of technicians or apprentices who are coming in. Another one that's really difficult to work with is Storefront Aluminum. We'll talk a little bit about Storefront Aluminum later on. We do spend a lot more time on this in the Storefront Aluminum classes that we do have, but we are going to put electric strikes in Storefront Aluminum. We want to be careful. Obviously, workmanship is important. And I kind of look at this one and the work that was done on it. I think this was probably done by a maintenance person who had to make it work. So we want to be careful. We want to understand that as we're doing this as professionals, licensed contractors, that we kind of understand what we're looking for. We have the right parts and pieces, and sometimes we have to be creative as we do our installation. We've got to figure out how to make it work, but we want to also kind of somewhat be professional as we do it as well. Here again, like I said, this I can live with it. There are ways to make it a little bit cleaner, but I take this one over either of the other two when it comes to selecting not only a strike, but also when it comes to installation of the strike. So we have products that are there to help you. If you're not familiar with our electric strike selector guide we have, in that guide, we talk about the different types of materials you're going to be working with, from metal to storefront aluminum to wood. We also talk about ratings. Are we working with a fire rated assembly? And we'll talk a little bit about that briefly as we kind of move through our presentation. We do have template kits that are available. We do hand out, if you ever get a chance to attend our hands-on classes, we do usually hand out the HES cut kit and the 9500 MTK for free just for attending our class. But we're going to go through the back part here on the back side of this, and where we're going to talk about the hardware. We're going to focus on the length of the latch and applications when it comes to selecting the proper strike to go with it. And later on, we'll touch on our new ES100, a wireless electric strike that is now going to be powered by a motor. So before we get there, we have a lot of other stuff we're going to talk about to get to that point. Now, anybody who's done this for any kind of time knows how important it is for us to be working with a healthy assembly. A healthy assembly is looking at the door, hardware, and frame, and how do they relate to each other, and how do they work to each other. If you take a look at my image right here, you can see one of the biggest concerns I have here is my door gap. The first thing I do when I'm walking up to a door is, if I'm walking up the door and I know I'm going to access control it, I'm looking at the hinge side of the door. I can very easily look at the door gap, because the door gap is that first critical thing we look at for potential of a healthy opening, because there are a lot of different situations we can run into in which, we're going to have an unhealthy opening based on the weather, whether it is the cold, whether it's the heat that we're going to deal with here in the Southwest. In Arizona here, from pretty much about June until the end of October, when the sun comes over a building, all those doors on the western side of our buildings will heat up and they'll swell and expand, giving us a potential for preload pressure against our latch. And if you're not familiar with preload pressure, if you've ever gone to a door and you can't turn the level very well, if you have to go in and push or pull the door to remove pressure from the latch against the strike plate, you're dealing with preload pressure. So you got to push the door to take the pressure off the latch. You can turn it and freely open it. We can also have a lot of preload pressure that comes from adding weather stripping. The new energy codes, ICC energy codes, which are being adopted across the United States, either it's the cold or the heat we want to keep out or keep in. We're adding weather stripping to prevent the heat, the cool from getting out, or the heat from getting in, which can create the preload issue we have to work with. So understanding the health of an opening is critical. The next thing to do is understand how to do a proper site survey. Here I've got a very nice, pretty decorative wall. Who can give me some different ideas of different tools you take when you do a site survey? What are different things that you take when you're going to go and do a site survey? What are tools that you take with you? So if you can put in chat, what do you think are important tools that we would take for a site survey? Anything you can think of. What are things that you would take? What are different tools you would take when you're doing your site survey? And I'm focusing now on thinking about installing an electric strike. So we got tape measures, we got cameras. Very good. Tape measures. Okay, good. Tape measures, camera. How about something that's attached to you? A level. A level is important because we want to make sure everything's level. Sometimes a screwdriver. I may want to take off the actual the strike plate on the frame and kind of see what's behind there, especially if I'm going to put a strike in. But something else I want to take with me too, because when I'm thinking about doing a stud finder, good. When I'm thinking about doing an electric strike in a frame, I'm thinking in the mindset of the technician who's going to do the installation. And with that, one of the most important things to me is I'm going to be knocking on everything. I'm knocking on the wall. I'm knocking on the frame. What is behind the frame? Is it filled with cement? If it is, I need to take a hammer drill with me. If I'm knocking on the wall, I want to listen. Is the wall furred out, or is the wall glued or stuck to brick or cement? Because that's going to change my installation process. It may change from, can I get a wire to the lock side of the door, or do I get a wire to the hinge side of the door? Maybe I change my locking hardware. So when we start looking at this, understanding the frames are important, knocking on them, so we're recognizing what is behind it. And the frames do make a big difference to us because we can work on the metal, we can work on the aluminum, the wood, the timely frames. A lot of the country does not deal with a lot of the timely frames. We have a lot of timely frames in the West out here, which is a light gauge aluminum. Oftentimes you're talking about a 16, 14 to 16 gauge light aluminum, that's snap-on style, something we need to learn to work with as we work through our steps and our processes. But understanding, the materials, understanding the skill set, understanding the tools we're going to work with are important as well. So here I've got a quick little application. Is I've been asked to access control this opening right here. So as I look at this door, I'm going to look at access controlling it. And right off the top, who can tell me, anybody here have any thoughts on two different ways we can access control this? There are really two different ways we can do this. Anybody have any suggestions? What are your thoughts on how you would access control this opening? Panic hardware, number one, electrify the panic hardware. Oftentimes the first one everyone thinks about. The other one is going to be an electric strike. So when we start looking at our different options, obviously we start considering things like our center removable mullion. Any code considerations? Well, if I'm going to electrify the bar set, I have no code issues there. If I'm going to put an electric strike on the frame up here, on the center mullion, no code issues there because I still have free path of egress. But if I'm going to look at putting a strike on here, things I need to consider, that removable mullion. One, I also have to take a look at my type of latch. What type of latch do I have? Is it 1/2 inch versus 3/4 inch? The other thing I really need to pay attention to is the distance between the head and the center mullion itself. What is the separation in there? I may have a 3/4 inch latch, but I cannot fit a 3/4 inch strike into that gap in there. Can I go with from a 3/4 inch to a 1/2 inch? Probably in most situations, yes. But I also may have to deal with the center removable mullion up here as well. What we used to do on a center removable mullion is we would go to a trailer hitch store and get the quick disconnect connections. And we did that for whoever's going to disconnect it. So we put a 4-gang box up above the opening up there, and we put a quick disconnect inside there, which would allow them to disconnect it quickly. And to further prevent issues with my wires being ripped and torn when they pull out the center mullion, is we put a small chain in here, and the chain would go from the center mullion up to the frame. So all I need is like a 6 to 8 inch little chain. But if they go and pull out the center mullion, they'll actually get stopped by the chain before they actually pull my wire too far and shred it and break it. So we always kind of took the extra steps. The other thing we would do is we would train their maintenance people or whoever's going to pull it down, train them how to do it, and we would videotape the training and document the training. So we documented the training, we videotaped the training so they had a copy of it to show them how to do it. Because if they come out, if they shred my wire and they want me to come out there and fix it, I'm going to bill them for it because we trained you how to do it. We gave you a videotape of how to do it. We documented who we trained. I would rather do that than have the process of it's like you guys did it wrong, and that way we kind of protected ourselves. So if I have to go back again, we've got a way to do it. Pictures are great. The videotape was a good way to kind of solve a lot of our issues because we gave them a copy of it. We gave a copy to the management so they knew we trained them how to do it. It's protecting us as well. The other thing is we need to do a proper site survey. There is no strike that will work in a pocket that's under 1 1/16 inch in depth. The shallowest strike that we have up there, you're pretty much looking at something that's going to be a 1 inch to 1 1/16 inch in depth to install it. Here we had this was at a medical university, a brand new building built at a university for medical studies and training and hospital services. And they went in and put in electric strikes into the frame. They did not have a 1 inch depth. You can see the body bowed. What they did is they tightened up the screws to kind of get it in, but they ran into an issue with the latch would not sliding nice and cleanly. So they had to go ahead and do a little bit of work on the door frame as well. This is a situation where they should have gone to an electrified lever set in place of it. I'm sure at some point someone said, well, electric strike's going to be $100, $200 cheaper. But you can see now they're living with this frame and this application here for a long time, for basically the life of the building, because they didn't want to spend an extra couple $100 to do it right. Codes play a big part in what we do, so we want to pay attention to codes as well. Here we can see as we talk about codes, they're important to us. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on codes today. I have a 1-hour class on codes already. So you can go and watch that on demand. Eventually, we're going to convert that into an online class for Awesome Academy as well that will break down the codes for you, so you can go in and get CEUs for that as well. But the nice part about the codes today is ICC codes, iccsafe.org. The codes are free to read. You can go to that website. You can go and look at all the ICC codes for building codes, mechanical codes, plumbing codes, electrical codes. They're there to read for free. If you need to get into the fire codes, nfpa.org. Here we've got the codes. We can go in and view them as well. With nfpa.org, you have to register. They want to see who's coming in. All it is the registration to show who you are to get in, but you can view all your codes for free as well, and for free. And there with NFPA, you go back into a lot of historical codes that will take you into the 1930s and 1940s, depending on which codes you're looking for. Even Canada has adopted the ICC codes. So they've taken the ICC codes, all those codes, and they've made them the Canadian national codes. So they have them a little bit more difficult to get to them. But here's some websites that are available for you to go look at them up if you're up in the Canada area. So briefly, when I'm talking about codes, one I do need to focus on a little bit is NFPA 80. NFPA 80 is our standard when we're dealing with a fire-rated assembly. There's 2013, 2016, 2019 is available as well. What we're looking for is that door in the frame that's got the label that we can see. Oftentimes we cannot see above the ceiling, to see is it part of a fire-rated assembly, but we need to oftentimes, if we understand where we're going to commonly find a fire-rated assembly, it will help us out. Commonly, we're going to find a fire-rated assembly in a corridor. A corridor is our path to egress. If we're in a multi-story building, that corridor will lead me into a stairwell. And oftentimes we'll find a fire-rated assembly actually a part of a perimeter wall. A perimeter wall is going to be based on proximity to other buildings or what is on the outside of the building. Oftentimes you may have a mechanical yard, you may have a welding spot, you may have a storage spot for gases might be on the outside of the building, so we will find it on the perimeter as well. But then we look at on the interior of a building, electrical rooms, heavy generating rooms, storage rooms for hazardous materials, chemicals that might have a fire-rated room, different things we're looking for. But the primary, when we're thinking about a fire-rated assembly, we're thinking about 4 components. The 4 key components of a fire-rated assembly. One is the wall. The wall, you're looking at a wall that runs from the floor to the ceiling, all the way up to the deck. I mean, when I talk about the ceiling, I mean the next floor above, and runs like the length of a corridor. So it runs from the floor to the deck above, length of a corridor. Oftentimes it should be labeled, but it's not. What we can't see is what's above that ceiling above us. We can't see what's above it. So we refer next to our frame. Sorry about that. We refer to the frame. When we're looking at a frame and our standing rating, oftentimes we're thinking about time. What is it rated for? So the wall is the base of an assembly. If my wall is rated for 4 hours, my frame will be rated for a quarter less. So if my wall is rated for 4 hours, my frame will be rated for 3 hours. If my wall is rated for 2 hours, my frame is rated for a quarter less, 90 minutes. So if I cannot see the wall, I'm now looking for the frame. On the frame, it should tell me my time of my rating. If my frame is rated for 3 hours, well, my door will be rated for 3 hours, and all my hardware will be rated for 3 hours as well. If my frame is rated for 90 minutes, my door is rated for 90 minutes, and all my hardware is rated for 90 minutes. So we're looking at that, remembering a fire-rated assembly is 4 components: wall, frame, door, hardware. The question we run into is, is this guy right here. Can we cut in an electric strike into a frame? Per NFPA 80, the answer to that is no, unless you are trained and certified by the manufacturer of that opening. And we're usually talking about the opening of the frame itself. So if that frame, whoever manufactures it, If you've been trained and certified how to do that modification, you can do it. In the real world, locksmiths, access control technicians, we're not allowed to do this installation. In the real world, does it happen? Yes, it does. And I'll tell you from experience, I've been out there and this has happened. When I train code officials, because I teach code officials the codes as well, and we talk about this, and they say, if the workmanship is done neat and clean, I'm going to kind of let you get away with that. But you have to know the jurisdiction, what you're working in. You have to understand what are their allowances for what they will and will not allow. I've been doing this in Phoenix, Arizona for 23 years. Every jurisdiction in the Phoenix area will allow locksmiths and technicians to do this, but the workmanship has to be neat and clean. You also have to make sure you have the right products. The right products are going to be based off of what the frame gives you a time frame for. You've got a 90-minute frame, your product you bring in has to be certified for 90 minutes or greater. Here again, I'm going to stress, the code says we're not allowed to cut a strike into the frame. You have to know and understand the jurisdiction in which you're working in to see if they allow and permit you to do it. Okay, let's go ahead and continue on. We're going to take a quick look at hardware and the electric strikes themselves, and let's see how they relate to each other. So we have a lot of different hardwares that we're going to look at that we can potentially put an electric strike on. I was fortunate enough that years ago I spent time, we had 2 locksmiths that did 95% of all of our hardware. You know, I had hardware that needed to be done. I had a locksmith, I'd call them up. They go out, site survey, figure out what they need to do, or I would site survey and give them the information. But I had to learn and understand all the different types of hardware because I wanted to understand how do I take something from a mechanical format into something that is electrified. The most important things I'm looking for oftentimes is understanding the hardware and the length of the latch. What is the existing length of the latch and what is the existing functionality? Is it a simple passageway set? You know, something I can turn from either side and freely go either direction I want. Classroom or storage room function. I need to know the functionality. And I carried around a little ruler with me that had all my measurements on it. 1/2, 5/8, 3/4 inch, and 1 inch. Because we get into looking at the individual products, you know, what am I working with? Is it a knob set versus a lever set? Knob sets are still fine as long as I can keep them working mechanically. But when I look at some of the hardware, I also have to understand certain things that are on them that I do not want to work with. If I've got a simple unlock button where I can free spin it from the inside and unlock it, I'm going to have to replace that. And I'll be honest with you, if I've got to replace a lever set or a knob set, I may consider coring a door and go to an electrified lever set. I'm not always set on what I think I want to be able to do until I do a site survey. The site survey is where we determine the hardware. We have to understand the latches. We have to understand the length and the functionality. Does it work? We're physically testing the dead latch. Does the dead latch work and function? So we're doing our steps. A good site survey in any opening is about 3 minutes. I'm understanding what is the functionality that the customer wants it to do. How does he want it to work? In the back of my mind, I've got all these codes floating around the back of my mind because I need to make sure that when I convert it from mechanical to electrical, I am 100% code compliant. I want my technician to understand that as well. He needs to understand codes as well because he's the last one touching a door before I turn it over to the customer. Gathering information, physically testing everything is important. Understanding what type of lock set you're working with. If I work with a mortise lock set, does the mortise lock set have a deadbolt? Yes or no? Will the deadbolt be extended? If that deadbolt's extended and I need to release it with a strike, well, most of the time the strike's going to slam closed and my deadbolt's banging on the outside on the way back in. There's only one strike designed to open and keep open and let a deadbolt go out and return. That's the 1006, which we'll show you just briefly. But you've got to understand here, mortise lock sets come in different configurations from different manufacturers. So we need to pay attention to the deadbolt. If we have it, where is the dead latch? The dead latch right here, 1006, perfect. Yep, this is the only one that will capture, and you've got to get the option kit to be able to hold it open. Where's the dead latch on the strike? Is it above or below the main latch? Okay. As we look at electric strikes that we have, one, what is it designed to work with? Up to a 1-inch deadbolt. You know, so I've got products up to a 1-inch deadbolt. Okay. Will it work with something smaller? If it works with a 1-inch deadbolt, will it work with something smaller? And the answer usually is yes. The 1006 up here, you order it fail safe or fail secure. That is a unique one. You have to order fail safe or fail secure, but it will give you the capability of recapturing a deadbolt. It'll release it. It'll be capable of holding it open with the option kit, release and recapture. The 1600, our new generation came along. Not only what it's capable of, but what is it certified for? Is it certified for outdoor? Is it certified for fire? Is it certified for windstorm standards? Windstorm standards, well, for those of you guys out there in New Jersey, you have to deal with a windstorm standard. The Gulf of Mexico, all the way up the Atlantic seaboard, all the way up into Long Island, you have to deal with windstorm standards. And you might better know that better as a hurricane. So when you start getting within the shore area there, you have to deal with windstorm standards for your products. What is the product capable of working with? 3/4 inch latch. What is it rated for? What are the products it's designed to work with? And I'm going to tell you, we tell you what it's designed to work with, but don't be afraid to think outside the box. Different products. What is its latch length? It'll work with, 5/8 inch, 3/4 inch. The 5200 is one of my favorite strikes to have as a spare. It'll handle up to a 3/4 inch latch with the adjustable horizontal adjustment for the keeper. It's a good one to have on the truck as a spare because of its flexibility. I get the adjustable capability with it, but it's a good spare for, I need to get something, a customer's got something that's been damaged. This might be a good, easy one to be able to install. The depth is only 1 3/16 inch, so it's a minor modification, but if I need something quick or simple, I can work it with a cylindrical lock, and I can work it with a mortise lock set without a deadbolt. So just because we tell you what it's designed for, don't be afraid to think outside the box. And if I need something where I want, I cannot cut something in, or I have a difficulty cutting something in, the 8000 series is designed to basically drill a hole through that back box and drop right into the pocket. You're going to have some minor modifications on the 8000 and 8300 to get it to work. You want a nice, clean installation. Oftentimes, I'm going to recommend the 8000 and the 8300 for interior doors, interior office style doors, fire rate assemblies for the 8300, nice, clean, minor modifications. But I'll tell you what, I really like the 8500. While the 8500 is fire rated, I've seen a lot of flexibility with this product in many different applications, and it takes a beating. I've got the capability with the 8500, my little leg right here, I can adjust that leg and move it for multiple different types of mortise lock sets. I mean, it says it's for a mortise lock set, but will it work with other things? Yes, it will. If I've got something where I can't get into that dust box very easy, difficulty there, I do like the 8500. It has been, I've seen it in some real heavy duty applications. You're talking thousands of cycles a day, taking a pounding, and it is still working. So I really like the 8500. All I've got to do is drill a hole through the back, get my wire in the back. That is a clean installation, one of my favorites. A little bit more expensive, but I tell you what, sometimes if I can get it in quick and easy and go on, it's worth the time and effort. Preload capability. We used a lot of strikes for preload capability here in Arizona because of the fact that we have the heat. I did a project for a huge manufacturer on the East Coast, and they were building a distribution center here in Phoenix one time. And we had 36 pedestrian doors. This was a huge building. 36 pedestrian doors, half on one side of the building and almost half on the other side of the building. And what happened is I put one type of strike on one side of the building and a different strike on the other side of the building. We were in at the construction phase. So in the new construction phase, I put in the HES 7500 strike for preload capability. And I go, well, you had one strike over here and a different one over here. And I go, wait until June. So this was we were finishing up the project in, I think it's like November, December, January timeframe. And I said, wait until June and you'll really understand why. Because in June to October, that western facing doors, all of them had electric strikes on them, and the preload pressure was there. And with the 7500 strike, I didn't have to have that push-pull issue with the preload. It took away a complaint from all the employees from behind that I can't get the door to open up. There's pressure against the latch because the door is swollen up. New construction, I put in 7500. If I'm going into a retrofit application where I know I have a preload issue, the Adams Rate 7400, That is one of my favorite strikes of all time. Now, what happens when you run into a residential style strike plate in a business? Well, we have options for you here as well. And we will find residential style applications in businesses as well. I've got a strike, the AES 300, nice, clean little strike. This strike has been one of my favorite strikes for a long time, especially where I've got that tight pocket. You get into a lot of commercial business with a lot of offices. We need a strike that's going to fit into the application. Nice, clean strike, fits into that pocket. That's already got the cutout ready for me to go. So considering different applications are important. When we get into bars, here again, sometimes you just have a Pullman latch. Sometimes you're going to have the dead latch, which is here. What is the length of the latch? 1/2 or 3/4 inch. Where's my dead latch at? How we're going to get it to work? Well, we've got options here. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then you've got the square bolt. Now, the square bolt came along about 5, 6 years ago, and this is a heavy duty square bolt. Oftentimes you're going to find this project or find this type of product in a project where you've got federal funding. You've got federal money supporting it, heavy duty. If you're doing a project in tornado area where you're dealing with FEMA standards for tornadoes, you're going to find this type of hardware on. There, you're going to find a strike. If you need an electric strike to work with it, the 9700 strike, you'd see it's got a little dog leg on the back side right here. Well, that works in conjunction with the strike here. The square bolt only works for the 9700. The 9700 only works for the square bolt. So we cannot interchange those. This product is also fire rated, outdoor rated. So we've got a lot of solutions for you when it comes to electric strikes, dealing with a panic rated bar across the door or a fire rated bar across the door, or even the non-rated bars, which you're going to commonly find out there as well. Strikes, 1/2 inch, designed for a 1/2 inch rim, 1/2 inch body will slide into that pocket. Will it work with a 3/4 inch Pullman latch as well? Yes, it will. You just got to make sure to do your adjustments, make sure everything kind of fits in there nice and clean. You're going to lose a little bit of strength, but keep in mind, access control is only part of a layer for security. I'm talking about layers. You're talking about a security system, access control systems, camera systems. It's a layer. So we just want to understand how all the components work together. My 3/4 inch strikes, 9500 fire rated strike, outdoor rated. I get up into the 9600 here, outdoor rated, windstorm rated. These are designed primarily for those hurricane areas. When windstorm standards came along, we had to develop a strike that would work with it. I talked earlier about the 9700 here. 9700 is fire rated and windstorm rated. Here you've got an immense amount of strength based on dealing with the square bolt itself. And for any of you who have ever been to McDonald's, you're familiar with the star wheel. McDonald's went to the star wheel from Adams Rate many years ago because little kids could not shove their finger up into the pocket and get it cut. So these are a lot of times we're going to find in a mechanical format. We find this in all types of businesses, McDonald's, commercial, retail, manufacturing. We'll find the star wheel. Well, right now there's no retrofit to make that electrified. So we gave you an electric strike, which gives you the capability of working with the star wheel. Great product. The strike works nice and neat and clean. But as I said before, you've got to think outside the box. So here we had, this was a post. So we had a tool crypt, an interior warehouse tool crypt, and they wanted to secure it. Well, it's very difficult to cut a back box into a round post. So what they did is, you can see here, they went and welded on my strike here. They welded on a 9600 strike onto the post, working with a cylindrical lock set. They put a nice little guard over the top of it, and they got it to work. Here's another one. Here I've got an electric strike. And what they did is, I've got a standard cylindrical lock set here, but the wood, the depth of the wood right there in that one single piece was just over 1 inch in depth. So if I cut a strike in there, I'm going to take out a good chunk of that. I'm going to lose a lot of strength. What they did is they came in with an oscillating tool, a vibrating tool, and they nice and neat cut it out, put my electric strike inside there. It works. They're thinking outside the box. They still got the dead latch to engage right here. Nice, clean, be willing to think outside the box. And sometimes you have to be a little bit more creative. Right here, They've got an inactive door. They only need one door active, but they wanted both doors for moving equipment in and out. So they have one door that was inactive. They had to put a panic rated bar across the door because of the occupancy load egress out of it. But they wanted to put a strike, but they had to put a big box on the back. That is giving us strength to hold the strike in place. Nice, creative. I like the way they got it to work. The other way I like to go sometimes, let's say I've got a double door. Any type of double door, I'm going to avoid putting a mag lock on the door because of code issues in many different jurisdictions. I like to come into the customer and give them an option. Can I put a removable center mullion in place for you? If I can put a removable center mullion on it, panic rated bars across the door, I can put an electric strike on there, lots of options. Here again, doing the site survey, understanding the functionality the customer wants, creating that into a narrative, selecting your hardware. And sometimes the hardware may be a center mullion with electric strikes on it. Sometimes it may be an electrified bar. Be open to all your different options. Knowing and understanding what you're looking at is important. I have a class where we talk about hardware selection, okay? Here, if you have to put, if you're gonna be using one of our surface mounted strikes, you've got a template. If you attend our classes, we give them away for free. It is magnetic, so it gives you a capability of setting it up. Don't be afraid to go get one of these. If you need one, come and attend our classes. We give them away for free. You can also get them at your local distributor. Let me see, I've got a question coming up here. Any price list for Excel format? Okay, Katie, I'll let Katie work with the price list on there. Here, I've got a whole series. This guy here was putting us on a cooler. This is a cooler that had to be secured. They were able to use the template here, get the head alignment. They took the head off the bar, gave us proper alignment, nice and clean. Here, I'm working with my hardware using I've got a Pullman latch with a strike. Here, I've got it in conjunction with a star wheel. And sometimes you have to think outside the box. There are boxes available which you can use to secure correctly to our frames. Okay, let's continue on. Storefront aluminum, we've got to pay attention to storefront aluminum. It is 50% of everything we're doing for access control. Recognizing different types of hardware. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. We have a class, we have a 1 hour class and a 2 hour class on storefront aluminum already online. Feel free to go out and watch them, but there are certain products we're never going to put a strike with. I'll tell you right now, if you try and put a strike with a deadbolt, yes, we may tell you it'll work, but I'm telling you right now, do not try and use a strike with a deadbolt. You're going to switch that deadbolt out, go over to a latch over here, replace one with the other, find the proper one, put it in. That is a simple mortise lock set. When we get up here to the post, you need to be very careful when working with these. I can do nothing with these two over here. This is the Pullman latch turned up vertical, and I have options. So we need to understand when we're working with storefront aluminum, what type of frames we're working with, what is the existing hardware we're working with, and you need to be able to, you need to fear that point right there. You need to fear that point, because if you're not and you pop the glass, it's going to cost you about $3,000 to $4,000 to fix it. Anybody out there ever pop their glass? Go ahead and raise your hand up if you've popped glass before. And I guarantee you're going to get a couple of people who are going to say, yeah, I popped my glass. I've had somebody pop glass, and it costs time and it costs money. So recognizing what type of frame you're working with, what type of strikes we have that will work with it. The 7100, great strike, but I've got to have that complete depth open pocket. This is oftentimes going to be on the wall side of the frame where you've got completely open pocket. Different types of applications it might work with, but 1 5/8 inch in depth. The 7400 I mentioned earlier, one of my favorite products of all time, because it's got the preload capability. It comes with different faces on it, 1 1/16 inch in depth. Nice, clean product. Like I said, I can put this in wood, I can put it in metal, I can put it in aluminum. A lot of applications with the with the 7400, 1 1/16 in depth, different faceplate lengths. If I'm going to put it in wood, I want to go to the longer faceplate that gives me additional holding strength. Well, we also have all glass. Well, until the last couple of years, when we think about dealing with all glass, I kind of think of, I've got to put a mag lock on top of the door, and it's not something we really like to do. But if the architect specified all glass doors, and that is what the customer wants. The customer wants clean. They want energy efficient. They want to be able to see what they're working with. But if I've got to put a mag lock on, I'm going to have to do it. If I've got all glass without a header up there, well, I've got header plates I can bring down and bring on top of it, but I want to avoid that if I can. New generation now, we've got hardware out that gives us vertical latching capability on all glass. So let's take advantage of it. What we did is we have a strike now. We're taking the Folger Adams strike, changing the tape, the base head plate on it, and we're all able to mount it up vertically up or horizontally up on the frame. I can get it to work with my latching plate on my all glass door. Most commonly, you're going to be looking for a latch like this. It's a good old common latch with a spring loaded on it. It's going to pop in. It gets retained in by the strike. You will see a roller ball latch as well by another competitor. You want to be very careful is when you're going to use this in conjunction with the strike, it needs to be high enough up. I need to have it high enough up here because it has a tendency with the spring is I can get it bouncing. And with that roller, I can get it bouncing up and I can literally roll it right out and unlock the door. So we want to be careful. There is a retrofit kit. So if you come across one that has a roller ball on it, we have a retrofit kit. You can pull out the roller ball and put in a much more secure latching mechanism. So we took the Folger Adams strikes, single doors or double doors. We give you two different options. We've got a nice little bumper plate on here for you. So if you come into the vertical rods on an all glass door, you've got a solution that is available for you. And even if you come into the vertical rods with storefront aluminum, if you've got the good old latch up here, I can work with that. But what you need to do is you need to measure the distance. You're measuring the distance from one edge to the other edge because these will come in a narrow and a wide image. So we want to make sure and take the measurements properly. We've got solutions for both singles and doubles up on the top. Storefront aluminum, if you're not familiar how to work with it, you want to make sure and call a locksmith because they have the proper tools to be able to do the work neat and clean. So we've got options available for you, either in concealed vertical rods or surface mounted vertical rods. Well, let's take a look at some of the other options that we have up here. Folger Adams has been around for a long time. Oftentimes you're thinking about Folger Adams, or you think about heavy duty industrial, heavy duty commercial, and even prisons or detentions where it's going to be very common. I'm oftentimes going to be looking at Folger Adams when I'm dealing with something. I get into that commercial industrial where I've got potential chemicals, chemicals that may oftentimes deal with around a swimming pool, access control in a swimming pool area. I know I've got a lot of chlorine, especially on an indoor pool, so I need to work with it. Even some of these hazardous materials, there's really nothing else other than stainless steel that you want to be looking at when you get into heavy duty commercial. If you're coming out of the ground, new construction, you definitely want to spec this for the commercial hazardous material type of an industrial application. Nice, clean products. New construction good. You can also do it in retrofit, but you have to learn to work with the external solenoid that you come with that. Okay. Smart packs. Smart packs have been around since the 1990s. A lot of evolutionary changes, but they are very good, clean products. Smart pack is designed to clean up the electricity, the voltage and the amperage that is hitting our electric strikes. If I'm sending 27 volts to an electric strike, I'm going to burn up the solenoid sooner than later. A smart pack takes that 27 volts, drops it back down to 24 volts, and it'll extend the life of the solenoid. If I'm going to put a product into a timed function, it is unlocked from 8 to 5. The solenoid is taking pressure all day long. The smart pack will take that pressure and drop it down by 25%. A smart pack will not work with a motor-driven device. We're finding more and more motors in electrified mortise lock sets and electrified bars, but I am limited by up to 750 milliamps. Okay, so we want to pay attention. There are products that are available to help you. If you need assistance with cutting in strikes, we have templates available for you. I do recommend a cover plate, and that's just there to really protect the installation of a latching mechanism around it. If you need our tab kits, we have tab kits available for you. Always use 2 screws and always put a little bit of blue Loctite on the back of it as well. So I want to briefly talk to you about the ES100. So The ES100 is our newest strike. It's been out now for a couple of months, but it comes into the family for the Aperio products. And this is where we're using wireless communication. And the ES100 to me is a great solution for a lot of different applications. Because if I need to get a wire to someplace and I can't get a wire to it, I need to look at wireless solutions. Electric strikes are great products to work with, but in the ES100, you can buy this as a wholesale kit. The wholesale kit, you get a hub that is paired to a reader, and you get either the 1500 or the 1600 electric strike. But what we've done now is we remove the solenoid from the 1500 and the 1600, and we put in a motor. For the very first time, you have a motor-driven strike. So these will have a motor in them, and you get them wireless. The only wires we have is in the back of the frame from the card reader to the electric strike. So with the motor, I've dropped down the energy necessary to make it work. Communication comes from the hub up on the wall to the card reader. One-to-one configuration. It works on anybody's Wiegand communication. All the wiring happens right there at the frame and the wall. So we've got, not only our older products that we have in line with the one-to-one hubs, but now we have added the wireless strike. It gives us a lot of different options. It comes in different colors and shades. Door position switch. We can also put in switch for monitoring the latch. Is the latch actually engaged into the pocket? Nice, clean installation. Oh, and by the way, you do get all the, probably about 95% of any card reader technology you're going to have, it's going to work with it right here, even getting into the mobile enabled Bluetooth capability here as we go into the future. Operated by 2 AA batteries, you're talking between 40 and 45,000 cycles of operation. Okay. Here, one-to-one configuration. That hub sitting up on a wall is going to take the place of a card reader. I always tell everybody, 50 feet, I see it, it sees me. The hub sees the card reader. It's going to work perfectly. I've run this down a hallway at a hotel one time, 120 feet. We measured out 120 feet. That perfect environment. It read perfectly fine in a real world situation. I always tell everybody 50 feet, I see it, it sees me. This is a nice, very clean product. It also comes available in bigger integration capabilities. You have to be a certified technician to get to the 1 to 16, 1 to 32. We're also taking this up to 1 to 64 now. So we've got a lot of growth coming up in the Aperio technology. If you're not familiar with it, make sure and reach out to our teams. But the ES100, it's going to give me a lot of flexibility. I can work in a lot of different doors, a lot of different applications. I need to add something. I cannot interfere with somebody's business continuity. Difficult installation, time-sensitive installations. I've got an existing infrastructure up above the ceiling. So we get a lot of flexibility with the ES100 we did not have before, especially if I need to get out there and add something. A proper site survey is important. Nice applications. If I, trying to get wire around cinder block, brick constructions, tilt-up constructions. Here, we have applications where I don't necessarily need to get that hardware to the strike anymore. If I can get something on the front side, the back side, oftentimes I can go through a frame, getting that wire in between the 2 points. I can make it work, especially if I can get a wire up inside here where I can get a wire to a hub. A lot more flexibility, but you need to do a proper site survey to make sure it works. These are not necessarily designed to be outdoor applications at this point. Hopefully we're going to get them closer to that. If you're going to put it in an outdoor application, I could probably do it in Arizona underneath a canopy or something like that, somewhat protective. But I also would recommend sometimes like a protective cover. STI makes some really nice clear stainless or clear covers we can use. So kind of look and see, but be cautious with applications at this point. We're going to do the same type of site survey you would regularly do with Aperio, making sure we understand separations between hubs as we have them. Application for the primary, I put a hub up on the wall looking at a strike. I think about, if you've been in my Aperio class I do, so I have a class on Aperio also, is we talk about the shape of a rugby football. Is how the basic how the basic line out for that territory looks when we're looking at relationship between a hub and a card reader on the door or a lock on the door. I can put an antenna and take it to a basketball style. So Go and watch my Imperial class. We'll give you much more detail on how to do a site survey for the Imperial products. So we start looking at doing a site survey. It's important. The site survey, the health of the opening, what is the length of the latch? Gathering information is so important to us. Knowing our standing, what is the existing hardware? Is there any kind of preload issue I need to work with? In the access control world, we always kind of look at, I want the door healthy before we touch it. Before my technician touches it, I want the door healthy, because as soon as we touch it, we own it. Determining any codes, any type of ratings, restrictions that we may have. Is it a fire rated product? You know, before you start cutting, if it's part of a if it's a leased or a rented area, talk to the property management. Maybe they say, you can't cut a strike into my frame before you cut. No, you're not supposed to do that. Okay, maybe if I can't put a strike in the frame, can I core the door and put an electrified lever set in? You need to know the core codes and the ratings that go with it, any restrictions that go with it. Which lock sets work with it. If you have our guide that goes with, that we can provide you, have your salespeople take it out there when they're doing the site survey, or your engineers, whoever is doing the site survey. We have a tool that will help you do the site survey. And if not, ask questions. If your technicians are going out to do an installation, we have in the built app a class that's going to show you step by step that you're going to go through to install an electric strike. The built app right now, ASSA ABLOY has I think we went over to 101 products right now. ASSA ABLOY has on the built app. It's there to help and support you. And if nothing else, have our ASSA ABLOY customer support app. Imagine being able to call in and ask support and getting in touch with us here in Phoenix in literally minutes. I think our average dwell time on hold is under 2 minutes, but you can call and talk to us. If you're there on site, you can live stream video to us and show us what you're looking at the same time. You've got Resource Center here. All the instruction sheets, all the data and detail you need on individual products is right here. It is a great app to have if you're working with any ASSA ABLOY product. And if you need drawings, we've got hundreds of drawings. Over the last 18 months when we're all kind of locked up, we now have a website there where you can go in and access many drawings that are already existing that might fit your application. Technicians who are going out in the fields without drawings on how to wire something up, go take a look at this. You might find something that will help and make your job a little bit easier. And with that, from our team here in Phoenix, here's my information and Russ's information. Reach out to us.